Scott, thank you for doing this.
Tom,
We'll start off with one question. Where were you born?
I was born in Dallas, Texas, Medical City.
Really? And you survived?
I did.
Congratulations.
Yeah, have not come far.
Dude, I've heard so many bad stories about Medical City.
Oh, really?
Yeah, man. A couple of people I knew, because I'm kind of in the healthcare industry too. So they were like, yeah, it's surviving Medical City is a crapshoot.
I made it. I made it out, you know?
Like one dude almost got his leg amputated.
Oh, shit.
And it was the wrong leg. And it didn't need to be amputated.
Well, that's terrible.
Nothing against Medical City. I'm not trying to like talk shit. I'm just telling you what I've heard from people.
No, look, no Medical City slander on the. No, it's yeah, no, I made it out. I was born right here. I was raised in Farmers Branch, just north of Dallas.
I know where Farmers Branch is. Yeah.
We got famous for a racist law for a while, and also it was where they filmed Walker, Texas Ranger.
So let's start with the racist law. What was the law?
It was a really, it was like a, I think it was found to be unconstitutional eventually, but it was basically where, it had something to do with being able to pull citizenship papers on like any business owner or like employee that you wanted at any time kind of deal. And so, it was our, like one of the city councilmen, I think, proposed it. And so that was that's like most of the Wikipedia page.
Is how racist Farmers Branch and one city council member was.
For a while, it was like, if you said you were from Farmers Branch, they would be like, oh, that law. You're like, you guys hate Mexicans. And I'd be like, no, all our friends are Mexicans, actually. That's the real Farmers Branch experience.
That's one of the things is like, a lot of people from the coast still think that it's like the backwoods and it's the country for the rest of America. And then you kind of like visit the rest of America, especially as a comedian. I'm sure you've seen a lot more places. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. Everything kind of develops at the same time.
Yeah.
You just have this stupid intuition that people are like left behind.
Everything's much more the same than you imagine.
Yeah, I mean,
it's very different, and it's also exactly the same.
It kind of just like, Wyoming has Starbucks. That's it. That's where it ends the conversation. If they have Starbucks, that means they're just like everywhere else.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that the entire state has like 1 million people or something.
Is that true?
It's a very small populated state, but it's a rather big state, actually.
I'd like to go to Wyoming and like fly fish or something. That sounds fun. I think Henry Winkler does that.
Does he really?
I think he spends a lot of time fly fishing in like Montana and in Wyoming.
How interesting is that, right? Like what people do and the prelude of their life is kind of interesting to see, like what keeps you going.
Yeah. And I appreciate, I just love Henry Winkler so much from Barry and then from, everything else. I love him as the Fonz even, you know? So I just want to see him flourishing anytime Henry Winkler is doing good on a boat.
He was cool as Fonz, but as an older comedic actor, I love the guy so much more.
Me too.
He's like that neighbor or that uncle that's always witty and funny and has good advice, and you're like, I love this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was also in a movie I didn't know about until like it was called Night Shift. Have you ever seen Night Shift?
I have seen it. It was
Michael
HBO
Keaton
or Showtime like miniseries kind of a thing, or like
it was a movie.
It was just a movie,
but it was with Henry Winkler and Michael Keaton. And it was when Michael Keaton, I always knew him, like when he was already Batman when I was a kid. So I never knew him as like a comedy guy. And then I kind of heard that he did stand up and stuff. And you see this movie and it's like, oh, he's like the Zach Galifianakis in The Hangover. He's like clearly like the funny guy and he kills it.
Really?
Great movie.
Okay,
yeah.
I got to check this out. So the Night Shift.
They run a morgue, and then the morgue, they eventually pivot into being pimps, and they have a stable of women. They kind of fall into it through this one woman that Henry Winkler happens to know. Great movie though. It was one of those that I saw late at night, would have never thought of to watch it or anything like that. But
do they run the prostitution ring out of the morgue? Is that kind of like the movie's premise?
Yep.
Oh, that sounds so good.
The city morgue. Yep.
That sounds so hilarious.
It's amazing. And Michael Keaton's so funny. Michael Keaton's like, he does all these bits. He has this bit where he stuffs a bunch of toilet paper up his sleeve to look more tough, to like look more the part of like the tough pimp. And then later in the movie, like there's a misunderstanding, and he thinks that one of the women got roughed. He's like, did someone rough her up? And he starts grabbing at this toilet paper and shoving him up his sleeves like he's gonna go like handle it with his.
That's hilarious. I love that.
Great bit.
That's really cool. That's the other thing is like, you don't know about a lot of funny things or different kind of routes people have taken, especially famous people.
Yeah.
Like, it took me a very long time to understand that Tim Allen wasn't just a tool guy. He was also a really funny stand-up comedian that had a career outside of that TV show.
Yeah.
But, like, when you're a kid,
Yeah.
it's tool time. That's all you know him for. You're like,
especially,
that's the dude.
especially my age. Yeah. That show was huge.
Speaking of age, we touched upon it twice, but I didn't have the chance to ask, how old are you?
I turned 37 just a few weeks ago.
Well, happy belated birthday.
Thank you, man.
You and I share a birth year, 86.
86,
I'm
yeah.
37 myself.
Nice.
Nothing changed.
It's the new 21, I would say.
Yeah, 'cause it's funny though. Like, do you ever look back at when you knew people that were in their or tipping 40s or in their 40s? You were like, that's an old man at this point. You were like,
and if you
retiring
heard that
community.
age, yeah, and if you heard that age, you're like, oh, that person's old.
Yeah.
And it really is. It's so cliche, but yeah, you get there and you're like, I don't feel that old at all.
I think Jamie Foxx, he's a comedian. Everybody knows him, but he's also a DJ that I didn't know very much about. And he said he was DJing at a club once, and like these young girls asked him how old he was, and I think he was close to like 50 at that point. And they're like, they pretended like, not pretended, but they acted like it was a disease. Oh my God, you're 50? Like, are you okay? He does it. Just
And that's
Google it. You'll
Jamie
love it.
Foxx.
Yeah. The guy looks 20.
If that's Jamie Foxx, what hope do the rest of us have? He was,
I think get married, have a bunch of kids so you don't have to worry about it. Just lock each other down.
that's the way to do it.
I did.
You know,
It worked.
that's where I went wrong.
You
I
didn't.
lock
Though. You got a career that you're chasing. It's a little different.
That is true.
The artistic
true.
field in general, it kind of takes a while to get there. But
Yeah.
once you get there, that person usually ends up kind of being on the same track. You guys are just parallel. You'll cross at some point.
Yeah.
Plus, like you're right, 21 is the new,
It's
37 is the new 21. And you're not old.
That's what I'm saying. I don't, and it's weird. I don't feel old. I feel like my 20s, I wasted like so much of them, you know, probably just doing nonsense.
So what was your 20s like? Let's say, so
Well,
Dallas
it
your
was-
whole life, right? I'm guessing?
It was, yes, just various places around DFW. I've lived in like as an adult, I think like every part of DFW.
Have you lived in the Fort Worth
Village? I lived in Fort Worth. I lived at like what do you call the hipster neighborhood there?
That you're, I don't know,
Fairmount.
Knollwood?
Fairmount.
Oh, Fairmount.
I used to live in Fairmount. I lived in Watauga. I've lived in Irving. That was for college, but
Irving's cool. I've been
all
to
over
Irving
the
a couple of
place.
times.
It was not a cool part of Irving, but I had a really good time in college.
I haven't been to too many bad neighborhoods in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's kind of like I know they exist. I just haven't ventured into them yet.
Yeah.
Because like if you ask me California, I can tell you every single bad neighborhood, and we've probably been there at some point because you're young and dumb.
Yeah.
But now I'm not young and dumb anymore, so I'm like, do I really want to venture into somewhere where I might die?
Yeah, no. I would never voluntarily, go into unless like, there's something that you need there.
Oh, I mean, we would voluntarily do that in L.A. just to see what it's like to be in.
Oh, yeah.
Insert gang neighborhood name here.
Oh, shit.
What's going on 2:00 on a Friday night?
Yeah, no, I've never done that.
And you never go in a good car, but you never go in a shitty enough car because both of them will get you robbed. You go into something that looks like you're just a grandma passing by. Like,
Sure.
a 98
Yeah, okay.
Toyota Camry or something.
Yeah, something that won't be noticed.
Yeah, there's like all these things you got to figure out. But it's fun because like the adrenaline's rushing because you see a bunch of people on the streets that are, it's 2 a.m. on a Friday. They're not in
Yeah.
a club or something. Something's going to happen. And you're like, all right, I got to get out of here.
Yeah. I think that I went to a bad neighborhood on accident once, and it was like in the middle of the day, but it was just like it was like a ghost town, but there were like folks, like you would see like a guy on his porch every once in a while, and he would like look at you like, what the fuck are you doing here?
That sounds a bit eerie.
It was very eerie, and then I like took a few turns and you're out again. That's how Dallas. That's with like a lot of the bad places in Dallas. It's like they run up against like a really nice place.
Oh yeah, like I think 8 blocks left or right, you're probably going to be ending up in a bad area. But if you knew where I happen to be situated right now, you'd be like, how?
Yeah.
Or why are they so close to each other?
Yeah.
It's weird.
It is weird.
Plus,
I had
you
a
guys have so
friend
much
who lived
land,
on.
I don't get it.
I had a friend who lived on Swiss Avenue in high school. It was one of the like richest streets in Dallas, and his like in it like literally his backyard was like the dividing line. Like at the end of his like it was opulence on this side and just like abject poverty on the other. Like
Swiss
within
Avenue.
100 feet. Yeah.
Where is it located? Where's Swiss Avenue located?
It's pretty close to here. It's like old East Dallas.
Okay. So kind of like Park City's area?
Almost, yeah.
Almost.
It's just across the highway, I think.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. Like the highway kind of splits the two areas, right?
Yeah.
You've got the Park Cities and the other side is just Dallas.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we looked into that a little bit, and you're like, oh, cool. The price goes completely to the south when you go a little bit over there.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a big difference.
I've never looked, but I can believe it.
And then you said Irving for college.
Irving for college.
What'd you study? Or what was the
English.
plan?
I was an English major. I did not graduate, but I did really well in all my English classes. But it turns out you have to do well in the other classes too. You can't just fuck off the classes that don't interest you and do well in English. You'll still get kicked out of college, it turns out.
Yeah.
So I did that, but I really, if I'm honest, was more focused on playing baseball. I had been recruited to play baseball at University of Dallas there, and I made some like lifelong friends. It was like real cliche in that way, but it was perfect. It was like aside from getting kicked out, it was like the perfect 4-year college experience.
So was there a situation of possibly going pro into baseball? Was that kind of like the path you were seeking?
I thought at a point that I would try to get on with like an independent league team or something. I never thought that I would get, or I never thought that it was realistic that I would get drafted from where I was. I played with some guys who were insanely good, and even they and there was talk of them getting drafted, but they didn't get drafted. It's really hard to get drafted out of D3. If you're not, I mean, I think it's easier the better you are, and we were kind of like a middling, like we weren't bad, but we weren't that great either. So I was always like, I'll be happy if I play my 4 years, maybe I can just get a check for baseball. That was kind of what I wanted to do. And then by the time the end of my senior year came up, my shoulder just hurt all the time. And I was like, I transitioned kind of easily away from that thought, like when it ended, I was like, you know what? I don't think I do want to grind and try to get on with some independent league team. And
So D3, for those that don't know, college sports usually is division basis, right? So
NCAA is Division I, Division II, Division III.
and the higher the division, meaning the top pick,
The better,
of the
yeah.
kind of okay.
So Division I's the best, and then there's like 1 AA, and there's 2, and then 3, and then there's like NAIA and stuff like that, but different.
But I guess the highest probability of being drafted, D1, and then D1A, then D2, and then D3, I guess.
Absolutely. And a lot of D1 guys have already been drafted. It's guys that that's why JUCO is really good for that reason too, because you can go to JUCO, and if you go to a 4-year school in baseball, you have to go for, I believe, 3 years, and then you can get drafted. And if you get drafted out of high school and don't like where you went, you can go to JUCO, and it's only 2 years. And
So
then
what's
you can,
JUCO? Like
junior college? Yep.
Okay.
So they have some really good programs too.
So they kick you out because you didn't do the history test, I guess, or whatever the bullshit was, right?
Yeah, what did I not do? There was like a child development class that I really fucked off that I should have done better in.
Like how
what
to
else?
take care of your own kids or something?
It was like education and I don't know, raising kids,
So like early childhood
philosophy
development kind of stuff?
Yes, that might have been the name of the class. Actually, that sounds like it.
I took one of those, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the entire, at least what I got out of that class, and this was almost 2 decades ago now. Awesome.
I know, right?
Yeah, a
Oh,
little
dude.
less, but I mean, it was a while ago. It was more of like how Brahm and Freud had these really interesting thoughts and ideas and epithets, and how everything kind of like ties into how your early childhood development really leaks into your adulthood. And it was kind of meant to show you that like this kind of happens to everyone, and if you know the tools and deal with it properly, you'll be an adjusted adult. But the underlying thing is, don't fuck over your kids.
Yeah.
I think that's what they were trying to teach in some ways. Like, hey, there's a long line of
That's a
people
good
that messed it
lesson.
up.
That's a good lesson, though.
Yeah. So you screwed up that class, I guess.
Yeah. I remember it was a lot of nature versus nurture stuff.
Yes.
And I was like, I had to write a paper, and I'm usually good at bullshitting papers, but I need like a little knowledge to jump off. And I just remember bullshitting it in a way that when I got the grade, I was like, oof, yeah, I remember that one.
You're like, yep, no effort put.
Yeah.
So-
Earned it.
So you get kicked out of college, early 20s, I'm guessing. Baseball isn't going the way you thought, or
Yeah, it's done. Like by the time I was done with my senior year, I was like, my shoulder hurts. I knew I needed a shot in my shoulder. I forget what happened. I think I had a bicep tendonitis. It turned out, which
Ouch.
it's like all the tendons that go through your shoulder joint. Apparently, it's a very small hole, and there are all these tendons coming through it. So if one gets inflamed, that's why I had this pinching in my shoulder, and
so it started like a bottleneck, and you just didn't.
yeah, so I had to get a huge needle poked into my shoulder right here, which wasn't pleasant, but it made the pinching go away. But by the time that was done, I was like, I was pretty much figured baseball was over.
So what'd you do right out? So again, back to the questions, like get kicked out of college.
I really quickly actually got the idea that I wanted to write. I wanted to be a freelance writer.
Okay.
I thought I was already a good enough writer that I should be able to, and I was reading all these. It was much more plausible back in the day to like be a writer without any education or without a degree, and go to get on with some publication. And it wasn't, but it ended up working out. I ended up getting a couple of freelance writing gigs pretty quick, and that's what I've been doing mainly, aside from comedy, the longest, is just various freelance writing stuff. A lot of sports.
Okay. I was
Writing.
gonna ask what kind of what genre of writing do you do?
That was my whole angle. Was I was a college athlete, and I could it was like bullshit because I was doing game wrap ups and stuff like that, which you don't have to have experience playing college baseball to inform that, But that was my end. That was on all these things they want you to write to send in. Like, why should you get this blogging gig? That's what I would always say. That was my angle, and I got a couple that were like pay-per-click sites, and they weren't very good. And then off of that, I got a gig writing Dallas Cowboys content for the local NBC studio here, their website.
Okay.
And then that was like one of the coolest gigs I've had, because I got to go to the locker room and stuff like that. And having grown up a Cowboys fan, that was pretty cool.
Oh man, that sounds so cool.
Yeah, it was kind of wild.
Do you still do it for NBC locally here?
No, when everyone pivoted to video, they did too.
Okay.
And they were like, yeah, I had good relationships. Like, I don't have anything bad to say about anything, because they were all really cool to me. But they were like, we're going to do more video. Our anchors are going to do more stuff. And so that was the end of that.
Yeah, it didn't work out for any of the networks, by the way.
Yeah,
None
I
of
heard.
them- None of them made it past.
Well, wasn't the like data that was backing why everyone wanted to go to video bullshit? Didn't they find that out too?
Part of it was bullshit, and the other part of it was, and legacy media just completely flew the coop when it came down to what the internet was, what it would have been,
Yeah.
and where they would have been able to capitalize on it, is my opinion of why nobody cares about the news anymore. And unfortunately, I think that's why the news has become opinion-based, and
Yeah.
we don't get information anymore, dude. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
the news has really no news anymore. They just keep reiterating BS topics over and over again.
Yeah, I like the BBC.
They're pretty good.
Pretty good.
Al Jazeera America's pretty
When
good.
there's something that's happening that I want to know about, like usually that's the one I will turn on. If I'm watching TV, I don't really get news through TV though, honestly, anymore.
Neither do I.
It's mostly my stories, my cartoons and stuff.
I don't even know if I don't genuinely know anyone that has cable anymore on their TV. People are just streaming shit.
Yeah.
At all.
A lot of people, I had YouTube TV for a while. I didn't like it. The main thing I got it for was for sports, and it had this uncanny ability to freeze, like especially during basketball. It would freeze with a shot in the air, and it was like, how do they know? Like it would never freeze at a break. It would never freeze when they were showing a crowd shot. It was only when someone put up a shot, and you're like, ugh.
So the only reason I got YouTube TV was because I wanted to watch the F1. It's the sport that I'm into. And as ESPN at the time didn't have, I guess, a contract with them, so I had to go through YouTube TV.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, all right, cool. But after the F1 season was over, I was like, click.
Yeah.
Don't care. It was just bad. It was exactly what you're saying. Like, a beautiful turn is coming up, and it just stops there.
And
it
just,
like, oh, cool.
That
Thanks.
little thing. Yeah. It's so terrible. I just got into F1 recently. I'm not super into it, but I watched the reality show. And it made me a little into
Drive
it.
to Survive on Netflix. That is an amazing series.
It's so good.
Amazing series.
I love it. I would have never thought about it in so much depth, but it shows like their training, like how much their reaction training and stuff. I love pure fanciness of it all.
Oh yeah.
It's so fancy.
Yeah, there's I don't know I'm trying to figure out the word for it. Like indulgent spirit to F1 where it's not a cheap man's sport.
Yeah.
At all. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars a year spent on a season, a car. Well, I mean, like 70 of them, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, the next year they have to redo the entire thing from scratch. That's why I like it. That's what I love about it so much.
It's like a real video game. Like to see them tearing around like one of these, especially like Monaco, like where the course is just the city. Like that's like the coolest thing. That's some San Francisco Rush shit, you know? I mean,
pipe dream one day to be on a yacht watching the Monaco Grand Prix. Like that's a bucket list item easily.
Oh yeah. That would be really cool.
That would be one of the greatest things ever.
That video of the guy who like spun out and got, I think it was maybe Sebastian Vettel.
When the car all exploded on fire and everything? Is that the one you're talking about?
I don't think it exploded, but he crashed and then he just got out of his car and walked straight to the yacht. Like the camera stayed on him the whole time and he got out of his car and took his helmet off and just walked to the yacht.
That's what, like, sports in general are, on an outside looking in, they're cool. But once you get into the nitty gritty of it, like a Drive to Survive or,
the golf one,
or the Michael Jordan story.
Oh, yeah.
Or any film that's based on something that actually happened, you kind of sit there going like, man, there's so much more that goes into something that you may think as simple as a basketball game. It's not.
Yeah.
Like, people's lives depend on it to a certain degree.
Yeah. Their entire worlds onto themselves, you know? Like F1, it's really, I think that's the draw for me. It's like it's taking you into this world that is like, I didn't know anything. I love sports, but I didn't know anything about it. So it's really cool to, I don't know, start from zero and just learn about a sport.
Yeah, it's fun. And especially in today's society where we have so much access to the behind the scenes and documentary comments, and you have access to the actual drivers because they're online and they're always posting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fun. It's easier to kind of get into what could have been more of like an elitist sport before because everybody has access to it now.
Yeah, everyone. And it lends itself to reality TV because I love like they're going to have those spats anyway, you know? The team principals, like they're going to hate each other anyway. So might as well get it on film. Christian Horner and what's his name?
Toto Wolff.
Toto, yeah. Oh man, I love that show.
Toto. That guy's like the seriousness and the stoicism of that guy is frightening.
He's one of the most German men I've ever seen.
Like
just his shirts. I don't know what makes them this way, but he has the most German shirts I've ever seen.
I know exactly
German
what you mean.
Businessman shirts.
It almost feels like every wrinkle is a 90-degree angle.
Yes.
It's not a regular wrinkle.
Yes.
It's like purpose built. I know what you mean. It's like it's a meticulous.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Is like you have to be kind of like a Toto to make it work because it's such a meticulous job. Like simple one screw not being fastened a millimeter to the left, the entire car can just go straight to shit.
Yeah. And I honestly would also be just entertained with just like I'm still blown away by the tire changing. Like it's amazing. They fucked up one time and like I think the whole show, they like one team's messed up and everyone was like, "Oh, I can't believe they did that." It took them like 5 seconds probably, and it seemed like an eternity.
Because for those that don't understand, a normal F1 tire change refueling takes under 2 seconds. Like the best ones are under 1.2 seconds, and it doesn't make any sense how 4 tires refueling is done under 2 seconds of time.
Yep. They are strike force, those guys. It's incredible. Like
I love watching those guys as much as I love watching the actual race because I'm like, how do you guys do this?
Yes.
How do you do it?
It's that amazing.
Dude,
cool.
Rogan and Hinchcliffe,
thank
you so much.
I had a pal that just did Comedy Mothership, actually.
Which
one?
one?
Of the guys on my pod, Jimmy.
What's
Jimmy
the name
Nelson?
of your podcast?
Oddball History.
Who else is on that?
Lawrence Rosales and Jimmy Nelson.
Lawrence. He was one of my guests.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember the name. I was like, Oddball History. That's right. Lawrence does Oddball History. It's actually a really cool podcast. It's just all about shit that happened in history that you may not know about, and they take a deep dive on it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of funny that's involved with it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I could have never guessed how much fun I would have had podcasting, honestly. But it's like one of my favorite things now. Just to read, just get some weird thing and read about it for like a week and write some jokes about it.
I think when podcasting kind of became a big deal, I always wanted to do it. But I just didn't know where and what was going to be the thing to get me into it. How did you guys figure out that Oddball History was kind of like the niche that you wanted to? Did it come came naturally to me? There was a reason behind all of this.
Yeah, we originally had a different premise, and we kind of the original premise was something about the worst, like we're talking about like the worst things that happened in our week and like the worst thing, whatever, I don't know. But we recorded like a test podcast and it veered heavily towards like history stuff. And so we did another one and it kind of did the same. So eventually we're like, should we just do the history? And so that's how it came about. I have a lot of random historical events floating around in my head, so that it lent itself. So I was immediately like, oh, we could do this or this, you know. I think my first idea was the quack doctor John Brinkley, who became insanely wealthy with a rejuvenation process by which he would remove goats' balls and sew them up into dudes.
Oh, that's nice.
And he became like insanely wealthy doing this. And he also was an early radio pioneer because he had to advertise his quackery. So he eventually they wouldn't let him build as big of a tower as he wanted in America. So he eventually went to Mexico and built a radio tower that was so big that his radio station could be heard like throughout the entire American Southeast. Like it was huge. Wow. He called it the Border Blaster, and it had coverage like no other radio station at the time. And actually it played a huge role in the early in country music. Like he would play country music, and that's where like Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, they all remember hearing country music on this radio station that was founded by this guy for the express purpose of selling his goat ball procedure, which he was using to maim people like just left and right. He eventually became a state senator in Kansas. It was a wild story.
I'm just curious as to what he thought the balls of a goat sewed into. Where was he sewing it into? The scrotum?
Well, see, that's a point of contention. Apparently, when they caught him, they made note in their like investigation that he didn't have like a specific. He would kind of wing it. He would sometimes put them in the ball sack. He would sometimes put them like, I think he would put them in the abdomen sometimes, just under the skin of the abdomen, which can you imagine how, yeah.
But that's pointless.
It's completely pointless. Science at this point was they knew like balls were important, but they hadn't discovered like hormones yet. They just knew, they were like, oh, there's something to testicles. And so this was like a little bit of a trend, you might say, at the time. In fact, they had people in Europe were, I heard of in the book I read, people in Europe were using gorilla testicles. I also heard the very wealthy, they wouldn't mess with the goat testicle surgery, but they would have the testicles of young prisoners who had been executed. They would have those balls sewn into them. It was a wild time.
Yeah. So check out Oddball History. Apparently, there's some crazy shit that's happened.
It's yeah, that's it was a doozy.
So wait, question.
Yeah.
They catch this guy and then he becomes a senator, or prior?
Oh no, he became a senator first.
Okay.
They didn't.
I was just about to say, man.
There was like a detective for the American Medical Association named I think it was Lawrence Fishbein, but he was on his trail like the entire time. But it took him forever because he was slippery. He was really good at being a quack, and so he escaped for years. And then he was one of those people, like he got caught in his lie and he still wouldn't back down. Like he did the procedure in front of like a medical board who was there to judge him. And he was like, well, I guess I'll just do what I do all the time. Like, have you ever heard that story about Casey Anthony, about how she kept lying even when like they took her to the place where she had her fake job and they were like, all right, we're here. Like, they're pretty much like, we know you don't fucking work here. And she's like, walks in and she was like walking around like she was still not giving it up. She was like walking around like trying to look like she was looking for her office or some shit.
I think sometimes people get so entrenched in a lie that the delusion becomes reality for them.
Yeah.
They think that if I just keep going further, I can figure out an out.
One of these offices has to be empty.
Yeah.
And then it pays off.
Oh my God.
But yeah,
so
really.
Your buddy that was on the podcast with you, you said he did mothership.
Yeah.
Recently, right?
Yeah. Jimmy Nelson. Yeah, he did. Apparently it's real nice. He did the,
shout out Jimmy.
Jimmy, what's up? He did the open mic apparently, and then he got invited back to do another show.
There you go, killer.
He said, he said it was great. He said it was all set up very nicely.
I mean, you know how busy that place is. To be invited back means you're doing something right.
Absolutely.
Like to go from open mic to come back to actually doing a show, you're doing something right.
Yeah, that's never not a good feeling if you're doing an open mic and it's like,
everybody in the mall wants Mothership right now. Like,
yeah,
it was hyped up for years, and it did not disappoint at all.
I still haven't been there. I haven't been to Austin in a long time, actually. But yeah, I've heard.
I haven't been, but if you watch Kill Tony now, they shoot it exclusively at the Mothership.
Ah,
so because they're no longer at the Vulcan, and you can see just the design element into it. And then
is Vulcan still there?
Vulcan's still there. Vulcan's still killing it. They still, I think, I don't know if Red Band still does the secret show at the Vulcan because he opened his own club too. It's called the Sunset Strip.
Oh, wow. Okay. I think I've heard of that, but I didn't know it was him.
So it was a pre-existing club, and I guess the ownership was going through some stuff. Red Band just kind of barely touched upon it and on Rogan's podcast. And he said that, I got the opportunity, I jumped on it, and he's like, how crazy is this? 20 some odd years later, we both have a club,
Yeah.
And Joe Rogan's the greatest guy in the world for this. No animosity, no hate, nothing. He just kept promoting the shit out of the Sunset Club.
Oh yeah, that's
he's like,
awesome.
dude, let's do because
he's
Rogan, dude. He knows,
and it ultimately helps if you're making a place a comedy destination. Like it's gonna help.
Oh yeah, because Rogan keeps saying it. He's like, dude, you can do 5, 6, 10 open mics if you really wanted to in a night because there's so much going on off of 6th Street and like the adjacent places. I've never been to Austin, but I really want to go and check it out.
I've only done one show in Austin, and I was pretty early on in comedy, but it was fun as shit. It was at the 21st Street Co-op. It was They had like a really nice little room for shows. They had a little stage in there and a little cash bar in the back. It was a very fun show. And I say that despite not getting any of the free mushrooms that some other comedians were handed out after the show.
Let me know after this podcast.
All right.
I have friends. we have shiitake mushrooms if you'd like.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And
I
lion's
love
mane
those.
and all the legal
cordyceps?
varieties. All the legal varieties
I love
available in Dallas.
I love
Central Market. Come on, I'll take you over.
I love cordyceps. It's good for inflammation.
Is it really? I've never tried.
I think so. I don't know.
I know there's like this entire revolution of the fungi world and supplements and
Yeah, I haven't really got
there's some truth to it, and some of it probably is going to be snake oil in the future, but
At least you're
it's a
not
mushroom.
sowing.
It's not going to do anything to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, at least you're not sowing goat balls into your body. You know,
Yeah, it's all right. Well,
it's not gonna. It's a. You know, if you get burned on the quackery here, not nearly as bad of consequences. You know,
Brother, I hate to say this, but I'd rather go back to the goat balls in the society we live in today.
goat ball time.
It was a
I don't
much
know
better
about that.
time.
You know why it worked so well too? Is because all the farmers they were used to watching goats fuck all the time, and they were like, that makes so much sense. You know, that would turn me into a sexual tyrannosaurus.
So you touched a little bit on the whole drug scene as far as comedy is, and it's a big thing in the artistic world. Regardless, doesn't matter what you do. You write books, you draw. Drugs have kind of always been an enlightening and opening spirit. Has that impeded you in any way? Has it helped you? Do you stay away from it? Do you kind of like, what's your take?
I'm pretty. I used to. When I started, I drank a lot, you know, and that was my go-to drug. You know what I mean? And then I came and I thought it helped at a point, and then it became clear that it was hurting. And since then, I've kind of decided about that and most other things. Like, I'm really glad I've taken psychedelics and stuff like that. So maybe I'll move them to the side. But as far as like weed and alcohol and shit like that, I don't think it's like, if you can't drink without, getting shithoused, then it's like a problem. Other than that, like, unless addiction issues aside, like, I would say they're not positive or negative in terms of like your artistic inspiration stuff. Like, you can get to that place in other ways, and it's doing a job. It's taking you to a place where you're relaxed and kind of in a relaxed and playful. I heard that in a song that took a clip from a guy talking about creativity, and he was talking about how it's all about getting into a relaxed and playful frame of mind. Right. And I was like, that makes sense why. And I say that I still smoke when I write.
Smoke weed?
Fair amount of time, yeah. But yeah, that's my half-baked thoughts on it.
So I think my question maybe should be refined to, does it help the creative process off the stage, let's say marijuana or alcohol or anything else? And then, because I know a lot of people have the apprehension of kind of getting too drunk or high before they get on stage because of paranoia or whatever. But off the stage, I hear so much about, like, it helps the creative process and it opens up new pathways of thinking that maybe weren't there on the same joke.
Yeah. No, I think it absolutely can help. And I have had that experience too, where I've been writing something and kind of hitting my head against a wall and smoked, and it just knocks you off your pivot foot enough to where you're looking at things in a little different perspective. I think it can be really helpful in terms of that, for sure.
Okay. And then you did mention that you don't drink anymore.
That's right.
Was it alcoholism, or was it the precursor to it that made you kind of put an end to it?
No, it was alcoholism. I had a pretty, I didn't have like that crazy dramatic of like a bottoming out. Found myself drinking way too much, and then I kind of leaned into it for a while, knowing that at the end I was gonna quit. But for that time when I was like really letting loose with it, yeah, it was like full blown alcoholism, like intervention shit.
Really?
Not like, well, I mean, having seen Intervention, like that's some real dark shit. Mine was mostly like puking and just not. So
you weren't
not
turning
being
tricks.
able to not jacking punks off under a bridge or anything.
Could have been a woman. Come on, equal opportunity.
Well,
hooker.
that is true. Yeah, no prostitution. I managed to that I remember.
Oh, God.
I don't know what I was doing all those, but no, it was. And then I went on a bender, and one day I was like, I felt like shit. I think it was ultimately that I was really dehydrated. I think that was why I was feeling so fucked up that particular day. But I was feeling fucked up enough where I was like, I want to quit drinking. And I went to the hospital, and they gave me a banana bag and yelled at me and told me I was going to fucking die if I didn't stop drinking, which I appreciate them for. Nowadays,
they made a good point.
Yeah, I think they had some good points too. My only memory of it, like I remember being really sad, but I was still like on the intake, like trying to crack jokes. And I remember just thinking like, man, these ER people have horrible senses of humor. They're giving me nothing.
But those poor people in that moment are just trying to make sure you don't die.
Yes,
They're
exactly.
like, I can turn funny on after he's stable.
Well, and also I will point out that the people that were having to work like the desk, in the emergency, those were the main people I wasn't getting. And then when I was in the room, I feel like even if they weren't laughing at my jokes, the nurses were really sweet to me, even if they weren't giving me that many pity laughs.
Which is nice of them, at least.
Yeah, I appreciated it. I mean, they were busy with other stuff too. They were.
Now, has that come into a comedy routine? Because now you're on the other side of it, and like
it has
being in the hospital and
Yeah.
the whole thing. Is there? I feel like there's a good 10 minutes that came out of there somewhere, or 5 minutes at least.
Yeah, I've done a couple things about it. And one of the things, I've done a couple things about quitting, and then I took a joke that I had that I used when I was drinking and just made it in hindsight. So those are my few drinking jokes. But I did a bit about, it's kind of about realizing at a really low point that you're not alone. But it's about, ultimately about me watching a Hulu documentary about porn addiction. And this man, he was entirely too honest this entire documentary. Like I was feeling bad for him, both in the sense that he's like an addict and like, man, why are you telling all these people this? That's my I have two older brothers. That's my first thought with a lot of things is like, could you be mocked for this? So this guy being that vulnerable, I was like, oh no, you know what I mean?
So, is that where comedy came from for you? What was it? Because there's always,
I think it was. I think a lot of it was being the youngest, and I would have never put that together. I was reading a Kurt Vonnegut book one time, and he said that he was always kind of the comedian in his family, and it was a big Midwestern family. And he said that his theory was that when you're young, if you can make a joke that makes everyone laugh, it's kind of the only way you can participate in the adults' conversation. You know what I mean?
No, I get exactly what you mean. A few of the conversations I've had with folks on this podcast, everybody has a reason that kind of springboarded them getting into comedy. Bad family life, some tragic event happened. Big families have also been a factor where you don't get attention until you can show your worth getting attention. It makes sense if three boys somewhere along the weeds, somebody's going to get less attention.
Yeah. I definitely thought when I read that, I was like, yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
So at what age did you kind of have that spark of being able to make someone laugh? Do you remember the first chuckle you got?
No, I feel like I do remember some laughs in early, I remember, let's see. I'm trying to think of some, cause I know I do remember. I at least always thought of myself as like the funny kid. I don't think of that but I know I thought that to some degree because one time I have a specific memory of my brother saying something really funny at a family reunion, and a relative is like, oh, you must be the comedian in the family. And I was like, no, he's not. I was like, you can't teach that kind of insecurity, you know? That's when I look back. That's when I was like, I know that was when that insecurity bubbling up. That was the day I became a comic, I think.
So
He's not the comedian in the family.
your ego was like,
Sure.
we got to make sure everybody knows my name.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a thing. I liked stand up growing up, but it never occurred to me that it was a thing that you could go do. You know what I mean? As weird as that sounds,
It's not weird at all. It's not.
truly
Everybody thinks
doesn't.
you can be an actor somehow.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks you can become a musician. Nobody says you're going to be famous, but you can do these things.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to being a comedian, especially a stand-up comedian, even today, if you don't know, yeah, you can Google it and figure it out pretty quick. But outside of that, it's kind of still a mystery of like, when does an open mic happen? And
Like it was a
happen?
huge deal for me once. I was on we were going to the Greenville St. Patrick's Day parade. I was still a drinking man, and we went on the train and we went to Mockingbird Station. I got off and I looked and there was Hyenas. And I was like, there's a comedy club right here. I remember I walked up and like peered into the window like a hungry ragamuffin from a Charles Dickens book, you know? It was like peering in. It was during the daytime, so there was no one in there. But I couldn't believe, I was like, there's a comedy club here.
Yeah, I know, right?
Because I knew about the improv, but the improv also always seemed like far off. You know what I mean? Because it's just like the fact that there was a comedy club that I hadn't heard of, like that made it more accessible, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like
it doesn't. So
the
explain
first
it to me a little
one,
bit more.
So the Addison Improv,
I
always remember, oh, so and so's in town. They're at the Addison Improv. And I built it up. I you can go do shows there and everything like that. But I would have never. I don't know. I would have never tried to like approach, and I don't know what's different. It's like there's a little less. I think that's it. Approachability. I think Hyenas is a little more approachable.
I actually agree with you. Now that I'm thinking about it, both of the clubs, I frequent them regularly. I find it much more of a relaxed attitude at Hyenas versus Addison. For some reason, there's like a bit of tension in Addison.
Yeah,
versus
I can see
Hyenas. I think Hyenas is more forgiving for some reason. Again, I don't know why I get this vibe, but I get a vibe when I'm in Hyenas where it's like way more forgiving on new comedians or someone just trying to work out material versus Addison. They're kind of like,
it's kind of more like,
Which I see the reason both should exist. You really need the Addison Improvs to actually see if you're worth a damn one day.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
then you need the Hyenas of the world or the DCCs to let you just keep working until the confidence builds up where you're like, oh, okay, I can actually do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the big things about Dallas too, is our clubs. That's like the best thing about the comedy scene here is just how you can go to mics like most of the days of the week, if you're willing to drive a little bit. And a lot of that's just the clubs having it, just the two at Hyenas. I haven't done the daytime one at the Improv, but I probably should. It's like late afternoon Sunday, I think.
It's worth a try. You're gonna get a completely different crowd, but do they require it to be clean during the day?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think there's enough. Well, I have no idea actually.
I said
no. I said no, and then I was like, well, I have nothing.
Because I have heard of certain places, depending on the show. Like I was listening to Gabriel Iglesias, and he was on Joe's podcast, Rogan's podcast, and he was talking about like doing matinee shows, and there'd be kids there. So he's like, it's a completely different set where it's a lot cleaner than the evening shows.
Yeah, that is always weird.
I was just curious.
That is always weird. Yeah. I don't think they have kids in there, but maybe they do.
Yeah, you never know. This was Pasadena Ice House, so this is a long time ago back in the day. The Ice House still exists, and it's a great comedy club. But that's what he was talking about because they used to do like just 4 shows a day.
Yeah.
Middays, evenings, just nonstop.
Yeah. Oof.
I know.
It's both daunting and like kind of awesome because I think about like when I'm doing a lot of shows, that's when your material gets better and like for me, I start thinking of more shit. If I do shows in a night, there's a much bigger chance that I go home and am relaxing and think of a new bit. You know what I mean? So I think that's like the Beatles doing those 10-hour shifts in Berlin.
Right.
You know? It's like, it sucks, but that's like gonna make you so good.
And I think, when it comes down to stand-up comedy, the only way you will ever get good is by being on that stage. Just
Absolutely.
continue to be on that stage.
And when you're like starting out or like thinking about starting out, and you're like looking for like advice and shit, and it's because you're secretly looking for advice that isn't just get on stage, because that's the only advice really, And then you get into it a little and you see like how true that is. You're like, oh yeah, that's if you're early on, that's the only advice. Let's just get up.
How long you been doing it now?
10 years.
So you started at 27.
Yes. No, wait. 11 years.
26. And what was the first time you got on stage, and what actually made you get on stage? Where and why?
It was a thing where, like a convergence of life events. One being dramatic. One, me and a girlfriend breaking up that we had been dating for a long time, and then I found out not long after that a friend of mine had done like a stand-up show in like a hookah bar or something like that. But it was another thing that was like, oh, you can just do that, like you can do stand-up kind of thing. And so having known that, like, and where he went up at Backdoor Comedy Club, which was on 75 at the time, in that hotel. And so I called and and put my name down and did the open mic on like the next Thursday.
How'd it go?
It was pretty good. It was I had some friends there, so it was like it wasn't.
Was it a bring me show? Or where you kind of got to bring your friends with you?
It was just an open mic. I just happened to. A lot of my friends had, they had wanted me, like they had talked to me about doing it too, and so they wanted to come out. So
talk to you about you doing it or them doing it?
Me doing it.
Okay, so people like your buddies have been kind of like pushing you towards this a little bit.
Yeah, and they're that circle of friends too is like they're pretty creative group. They had a band for a little while, a few of them, and we would hang out and listen to music, and they would jam, and just very into shit like. And actually, I remember when they formed that little band, they had played a couple shows like right around when I first started, so it was pretty cool.
Is the band still going?
Nah, it was a few engagements, I think, and then out. A couple of the members are still making music, but yeah, no, the band is no more.
That's the funny thing about bands. They rise up and dissolve as quickly as you can say the name of the band.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the other thing is like the creative arts, the failure rate is like 99%.
Yeah. And it's tough, you have to like doing what you're doing. There's like, I don't, if you don't like it, like, I don't know how you do any of this shit.
Especially stand-up comedy where you are going to be given criticism on the damn spot. And you know it on that stage when you're standing there going like, God damn it, nobody's laughing. Or they're crying laughing, or somebody's just being a jerk in the crowd.
Yeah. And it's funny, because I was like, that's like the thing, of course, that you're scared of when you're thinking about but won't try stand-up, is that exact thing. But also, I think that's a lot of what drove me to it too, because before I did stand-up, I would write like funny, to be read, I guess they were blog posts, but they were really, I was kind of modeling it after, like, if you've ever read a book of like short essays, like, like Steve Martin had one, Cruel Shoes.
I've got a different Steve Martin book here, but
there are a few, I was really that was Jack Handey has one called What I'd Say to the Martians, just really short, written,
I'm
kind
sure
of humor pieces.
That's got,
Yeah.
like to the effect of what you're talking
Yeah,
about,
yeah.
or short poetry, or short little
Exact-
stories, things like that.
Exactly.
Where you
So
put a comedic flair to it.
Yeah, and I would do that, and I would put those out, and my friends would read them when I showed them to them. But other than that, it's just shouting into a void. So it was like almost as much as I was scared of the instant judgment of stand up, it was also like refreshing. It was like, thank God, like there's a reaction, good or bad, right now.
Nice. By the way, Dave Portnoy, if you ever listen to this, you're missing out. You need to hire this guy.
Yeah.
Like Barstool Sports needs Scott.
That's what I've always said.
You need to come to Dallas and tell us what the good pizza is, dude. Seriously.
Carmine's. Is
that what you want?
Carmine's on
Carmine's
Spring Valley. Carmine's. I love it.
There's another place that I found that I like. It's called Mr. One, and another
I've
place
never
called
tried.
Zealot. Really good
Oh,
pizzas.
yes. I've tried Zealot. Yes. I've had the.
Maybe I'm mispronouncing because I thought they wrote it out like
Ze-
Zealot.
I think it's Zalat
And then
or Zalat.
something to that extent. But yeah, it's
Zalat.
really- So I'm a big
think.
fan of like New York style, really thin, crispy
Me
crust,
too.
cheese pizza, just kind of like.
Me too.
And I found these two places that do a really good job of it, but there's like levels to pizza that's kind of nuts. So Dave,
Yeah,
dude, seriously,
for
come on,
sure.
help hook us up.
Yeah, Zalat's is the place that they do the Sriracha Ranch, right, with all their stuff.
Is that them? I don't know
think
if
so.
I've ever gotten the condiments from them.
They're open late, right?
I know they have one like in a Frisco location because my best friend lives in Frisco. So whenever we're just hanging out, we'll order pizza from there.
Nice. Yeah, I remember liking that place. I haven't had it in forever, but
It's good pizza. But yeah, Dave, please help us out here. But to get back to the comedy thing, what's funny is, and I don't know, I'm sure you didn't hear it the night that I was there, but when I come to the comedy clubs, at least the clubs that know me a little bit now, they let me sit in the back with the comedians because I got like a notepad and I'm writing down who I like and what I like. And I was just hanging out with the comedians, and you came up, and I heard like this murmur between the comedians, and then a few of them actually said like, "Do you know who this guy is?" I was like, "No." They're like, "Dude, absolute murderer. Like, you're in for a treat." So I want you to hear that because your
that's really
peers,
sweet.
your comedy peers, recommended you. Not just Lawrence, but multiple comedy peers in Dallas have said like, Scott's a killer. He is going to be selling out arenas sooner or later. Like, you've got it.
That's
Especially
really
when your
sweet.
peers are like lifting you up.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, it was a really cool feeling. And then you came up and you murdered, dude. That
Hell
was
yeah.
so funny.
What show was it? Do you remember?
I'd have to go back and look because I
remember
know I
where
first
it was?
contacted you. It was Hyena's.
Hyena's cool.
It was weeks ago. I mean, probably over a month ago because I first
Yeah,
contacted
because
you.
it took a minute.
And I had stuff going on. You had stuff going on. We were
Yeah.
just trying to kind of figure it out together. But you're still in my mind as like, dude, what a cool reaction from your peers, and then to also be that good because comedians, they're gonna say if someone sucks.
Yeah.
They couldn't
That
care
is true.
less. They're like, this guy's an asshole. He's never gonna make it.
Yeah, that is true.
But you rarely ever hear them say anything on you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, no.
I understand when they
No,
talk
that's-
about like a Harlan Williams or a Dave Chappelle or anybody on this wall, but the person you don't know that's really amazing, I love that. So
Yeah,
thank you
no.
for, being a killer.
Dude, no, that's really nice to hear.
And I think this is a prediction, 2 years away from Dallas becoming an ancillary huge spot just because of Austin.
Yeah.
I feel like comedians will just keep traveling up
Yeah.
our way.
I think it'll only help, to have if it becomes like a real hub down there.
It is
That's only
becoming one, man.
it's like such a short drive, I mean, relative to Texas, but
Yeah.
it's a short Texas drive.
Plus, when you're doing that Austin drive to Dallas, I'm sure there's got to be a couple of local clubs you can hit up on the way or something that's kind of on the path up.
Or at least get some kolaches
What's a
in
kolache?
West. It's like pigs in a blanket, kind of.
Okay.
But there's a bunch of different Czech places in West Texas. It was like a Czech area where a bunch of Czech immigrants settled.
Old Soviet Czech Republic.
Yes,
Or
and they
Czechoslovakia,
settled
which is
there
Czech now.
in the 19th century in West. And so now there's all these Czech bakeries, and one of their big things is kolaches. And so, but they have them in all kinds of different flavors. My favorite kind, I think, is I forget what it's called, but it's just like a roll with ham and cheese in it. It's all closed on itself. Just delicious. Soft bread, ham and cheese. Check Stop. That's what it's called.
Damn, I'm so hungry now.
Check Stop.
Like,
West
anyone coming up
Texas.
from Austin to Dallas,
Yeah,
please
grab
bring
some-
us some.
grab
Like, please.
I was so bummed. They started closing at night. They used to never close at night, so you could go do shows in Waco or Austin, and then you'd be on your way back, and you could always stop in.
So
The
it was
first
like the
time I
late night
pulled
comedy
off, I was
place.
like, yeah,
The late night comedy spots.
yeah.
That's interesting. So, first time you get on stage, did you get any laughs?
I did.
Yeah?
I did. I had like I told one really long story that I had written, and it was like one of those that like the entire thing is set up and then there's a punchline at the end. And it was very like worked. It was very much worked better to be read than me telling it. But I did that. I remember I had something about, oh God, I don't even remember. Yeah, I don't.
I mean, it's 11 years ago. It's understandable.
Yeah.
So you don't remember the first joke? Or do you?
I don't think I remember the first joke. Because I remember that long joke. It was about like a woman like fighting off a bear, like standing between like a news story about a woman fighting off a bear.
Okay.
She was home alone with her kid. But I like changed it. I was like, I made it like it was like, you know, like built it up like it was the story of like she was gonna run the bear off, and then I was like, well, she didn't have that. She was killed, you know, like just how to like run him into a wall kind of thing. So I did that, and then I don't remember anything else. Yeah, that's the only thing I remember, and I think I only remember it because it was I wrote it before, before.
So how long did you do the first time? Like, was it a minute, a couple of minutes?
I think
what do they
I think
want
it
from
was.
you?
I think it was 3 minutes.
That's kind of tough.
I think it was 3 minutes. It is. Yeah. It's a whole different.
Dude, if you've never been on a stage, 3 minutes is an eternity.
Yeah.
It takes forever, especially if it's your first time. And it wasn't a stage thing that kind of taught me that. It was the first time I did this podcast that taught me that.
Oh yeah.
So when Cheyenne Jahani came in, and like, thank you to him for being such a nice person. 'cause
Yeah,
it made
love
the
Cheyenne.
process so much easier.
Yeah.
But I can't explain it other than just like, you know, when you're on a stage and you're just petrified,
Yeah.
where you don't, it felt that way until like maybe 2 or 3 minutes into the conversation, and I kind of felt the flow.
Yeah.
Because he was responding, and I can tell, you know, hey, we're kind of going somewhere with this. I couldn't imagine doing that in a crowd of people and trying to win all of them over on a stage. I feel like that would just be like torment.
Yeah. I'm very much reliant on my writing. That's where all my I think I've gotten better as a performer, definitely over the years. But I'm mostly like, yeah, that's where if I am feeling like a little shaky about a set or whatever, I'm like, I trust my jokes. Even if I might dislike some of them at some points, which that happens, you know.
Your own jokes.
Yeah, you grow to dislike your own jokes.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I've never heard
Oh
about
yeah.
this. Can you explain why?
I think it's just hearing them too many times. I think eventually, like, I convince myself, like, yeah, that kind of sucks. I don't like that. But a lot of times, the way I beat that is just rewriting and tagging it and
Okay.
put something else new, and then all of a sudden, it's like one of my favorite things to do again.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I never thought about it that way, where the comedian gets tired of it, not the person behind it.
Yeah. It's definitely a recurring feeling, and it's like I think I've thought that at least to some degree with like almost every joke I've ever written, you know.
Is there a
it's
reason
just,
behind it? Like something that pops in your head that kind of does it? Is it an imposter syndrome thing? Is it you
It's
think
like
you've been
a-
doing it too long and it's tired at this point?
I think it's like a familiarity thing. I really do. I think it's like I don't know. It's like a relationship, you know? It's like eventually oh my God, I need this person 24/7. Eventually that wears away and it becomes like something a little different. You know what I mean?
No, I get exactly.
And
what you're saying.
that's kind of how it is. Like as much as I'll be like, I don't care for this joke right now or whatever, or find it funny, then I'll use it and I'll, oh, that was really helpful and it has a place and everything like that. It's just that you're not as enamored of it as you were, kind of thing.
And is it ever like the crowd kind of makes you feel like the joke needs to be retired, where you're not kind of getting the responses you were looking for, or where in your head it was supposed to hit different, but after like 5 or 6 different open mics or set, it doesn't do it for you?
Yeah, sometimes. And sometimes it's a weird thing. Sometimes stuff will just stop working, and it's like it's kind of hard to tell if you changed something or if it was just a thing that was going to work a few times and then never again, because that just happens sometimes.
Where do you get the inspiration for your material? What brings it up?
All over the place, man. I think I try to I don't know. I try to consume good shit, on the like thinking of it as like inhaling and exhaling kind of thing.
Okay.
Like where if I'm not putting out a lot, I find a good book or something like that. Or watch, a comedy like I get in, I just watched, Ali Sadiq's, new special that's on YouTube, and it was incredible. It was so good. And like, so stuff like that, music.
Shout out to Ali Sadiq, by the way.
Yeah.
The way he did that special was genius, in my opinion. It was innovative.
It's like
cool.
Master of the form stuff. Like it's like you have to be an amazing comic to do what he did, and it was just so funny while being the most like vulnerable, thing.
Yeah, it felt like almost the funniest TED Talk in the world. Not to dismiss it in any way. Yeah. It was a genius stand-up comedy thing, routine, an hour, but there was so much more depth to it.
Yeah,
I love the fact that he was just sitting and telling stories at one point, and it's just like. The way his facial expressions, I don't know, just like a master at the craft is all I can say. So I completely agree with you on that one. That was cool. Did you see Lewis Black's new special?
I have not.
That one's on YouTube too. Pretty good. Anything Louis C.K. has put out in the last 2-3 years has been just ridiculous.
I don't think I've seen any of his newer stuff.
Oh my God, treat yourself.
Is it YouTube? Is it on YouTube?
So Louis sells all of his stuff exclusively.
Oh, is it still on his site?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's how. Yeah, I remember him doing that with what's that video or that movie?
Yeah. He did. I don't remember the name of the movie, but he did a movie recently, but like 2 years ago, I think. Joe List was in it. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. It was a really funny movie, all kind of like about just was it in New Jersey?
4th of July
or something? Is it? Yeah,
4th of July is the call.
And it's like a family get together and just. A lot of funny happens in it, just worth seeing. But no, he sells everything on louisck.com, and I think there's like a package where you pay like $20 or $30, and it gives you everything in his catalog up until and including the Madison Square Garden live one that he did. Oh,
cool!
Which was just an absolute murder festival, dude.
I saw him at the Majestic a little while back. It was real good.
How cool is that?
Todd Barry opened for him, and it was unannounced, so it was very cool.
Todd's a great comedian. Amazing.
Todd Barry, he's so funny, man. He has like talk about like having your own thing. Like he is his own. Like there's no one like Todd Barry.
And that's the cool thing about certain comedians is that they pave a path that you didn't think should have existed.
Yeah,
like Holtzman.
I think that's why. I think that's that's a lot of where the inspiration from watching other stand up comes in, is the sense like, oh, he made a joke out of that, like, or he made a fucking killer, like monster story out of, you know what I mean? Like there's the, what's his name? Nick Thune came out with a thing a few years ago, and he opened with a 25-minute story about his dog eating a pot brownie on accident. And it was this epic fucking story, and it's his dog eating a pot brownie. It's like, that's how you use something from your life. Like that was
I was gonna say Ari Shafir's special Jew is on YouTube. That one was hilarious.
I still haven't watched it. I need to.
It's awesome, especially if just the minimum of Catholicism, Christianity, or Judaism. You're gonna have a really fun time with it.
Yeah.
Because all of it is based on those things, and just he brings the funny, and he's so good at it. Why I was going to mention is because you talked about like the 25-minute story of the dog eating pot brownies, and I was watching Ari do a breakdown of his own special, and he was kind of like, he was actually giving the tips that I thought were really important for a comedian to hear. He's like, hey, you got to make sure you try to get some funny within the first X amount of seconds of being on the stage. And then he would go back to the video and going like, look, see, this is where I got the funnies. 10 seconds in, 20 seconds in, 40 seconds in. He's like, you need to start that ramp up as soon as possible. And then you can go into your long story because they're already in a funny mood.
Yeah.
I like that he does these comedy breakdowns.
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
But you got to check out Jude. That thing is so funny. It's
I will,
great.
yeah.
It's wonderfully done. So you were talking about kind of like where you get your inspiration. Could be from a book, something you watch. How long did it take for you to kind of feel like, I'm Scott and I have my voice as a comedian now versus I'm still trying to kind of like learn from others? Because I know that's a big deal for comedians, like getting your voice.
Really?
It's your flow and your style.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I think really relatively recently, honestly. Because I had, I sounded like myself to some degree, I think, from the beginning, but it's, I don't think I was able to find it until I started like, I think once I quit drinking and I was a little more like not, fucking days off and more, because there was never a point, even in my drinking, I still wanted to do stand up and still cared about it and would go do it. But I think once I got over that, where it wasn't just a constant suck on my energy and attention, that I started to really be able to put some stuff together, like some, and it went hand in hand with just getting more stage time too, but which helps not being shithoused all the time again.
Right. I'm sure that it has to make some sort of a difference.
Yeah. Actually, I remember reading Louis C.K. in an interview in Playboy, and he said a thing. It was something about either talking about drinking and how he didn't really he didn't drink it. I don't know if he didn't drink at all or didn't drink at clubs or whatever, but he was talking that he used to, and he was like, well, it's either a distraction or it's something that it's a distraction that you can put down, or it's more than that, in which case you probably need to address it in some other way. And I remember it was a few years before I quit drinking, but I remember reading that and being like, shit, that sounds true.
So you quit the drinking and then kind of got more into it. It became something that you wanted to do. And then recently you found your voice.
Yeah. And I say recently, I think the last few years, I think a lot of it was just being able to do longer sets. I think helped a whole lot. 'Cause it's like, you have plenty of material, but it's like how you put it together and stuff like that.
So the cohesive story of putting all of the jokes into kind of like a beginning to an end is
and finding
really helped.
Yeah, finding kind of a feel for a longer set, I think helped. Like just it's like not anything more. Yeah, I think it's just like a feel. It's when you're. It's like I was talking about when you do a bunch of shows in a row. Like it's like when you're in the rhythm. That's the word I was looking for. When you're in the rhythm and like you can spend more time, the more you can spend in that. It's like Sam Morril talking about listening to your sets, and he's like, because it makes you think in your rhythm. And so I remember thinking that's a really big deal. It's just me spending more time in the rhythm. And then if you're doing 30 minutes a show, doing an hour a night rather than 30 minutes, it becomes you find a lot there. You know what I mean? You find things that you go, oh, that is worthless. Get rid of that. And here's a line, and I think it is just all having the chance to think and be in that rhythm, in like your natural kind of cadence of how you are on stage.
So
I should listen to more of my sets, by the way. I do not listen.
I was going to ask, do you listen to your own sets?
Not a lot.
I have a hard
I
time
do
going
sometimes, but
like I can't listen to my own podcast. It's kind of weird. I'll listen to parts of it to kind of make sure that the audio is cohesive and it's edited the way I want it to be. Shout out to Reagan. You do a great job, by the way. My producer.
shout out.
She's one of them, actually. Chandler Valencia. Do you know the comedian?
Who?
Chandler Valencia. He's local here. He's a really funny guy.
I think I know the name.
Nathan Rivas is a buddy of his. And
Okay.
they're like this young crew of comedians, really funny guys. I actually saw him the first time on Kill Tony and then saw him live, and I was like, dude, I got to have you on my podcast. You're really funny.
Nice.
But his girlfriend does my producing, so she's
Cool.
really good at that.
Very cool.
So shout out to Reagan. You
Shout
can cut
out.
this out if you don't want it. It's up to you. It's your choice. But back to kind of like what you were talking about. Is it similar to kind of the flow state runners or cyclists get when you're just kind of like you get into a rhythm and you can keep going and going and going?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I do think that that's, the more I've written and tried to write stand up, the more I've kind of come to the conclusion that it is more about like the headspace you put yourself in than sitting down and like this, like spending your time trying to create something funny, staring at a blank page,
Right.
I find it's better to do whatever you have to do to just get yourself in a better state to write, meditate, smoke, work
Right.
out, whatever you need to do.
Something
But
to
yeah,
kind of
it's
get you
like-
clear-headed to work on what you need to work on.
Yeah.
Do you get writer's block a lot? Does that happen to you? In comedy and outside of comedy in your regular writing, was that something that you dealt with at all?
Yeah, from time to time. I've started one of the most helpful things I've ever heard is they talked about, or someone said, you have to just view the block as part of the process. It's just part of you're here, and then you feel blocked. It's just how it goes. It's going to come up from time to time. And then there's little stuff you can do. I try to just write something on those days. You know what I mean? Like I know it's going to be shitty, but I'll take one of the things I do is I'll take a random word generator on the internet and just take 5 words and try to write jokes with them.
Cool.
Either using or about them. That's one of my things that I'll do if I really have nothing and I feel like I'm butting my head against a wall. And then also just going through an existing bit and just trying to find stuff to cut or stuff to add.
So stuff to cut, is that the word economy that most comedians talk about as kind of like the least amount of words needed to make funny?
Yeah, and like little stuff that like it's, there'll be little punchlines that you find funny, but it's like when you think about it, it's like how the amount of time it takes to get there. It's like it's not worth it ultimately.
Does it happen that something like that where you're like, it does, ultimately it's not worth it, and then you revisit it a few months later or a few weeks later, and you're like, there's like things I can add in here that'll just keep making it funny all the way through?
Yeah, sometimes for sure. Yeah, sometimes it. I've definitely taken stuff out that's ended up back in before. A lot of it is. Yeah, it's like the rhythm thing again. A lot of it is it stays in because like it's like muscle memory. So and then it like works a little better, and suddenly you're like, that part isn't so bad.
Do you do traveling for comedy, like outside of Dallas and go to other different places?
I have, not like far and wide, but I've done, Oklahoma, Kansas, the
Bible
South,
Belt kind of area.
Yeah, our kind of surrounding areas.
So the question I was going to ask is, do you cater your comedy differently in different places? Do you leave stuff out knowing it's not going to work in like an ultra-conservative Oklahoma town versus maybe Austin, which is way more
to some degree,
liberal?
Yeah, to some degree. I'll do, there's like a couple tags that I might leave out, or like there'll be like a tag that I'm leaving out because of that, and then the show's not going well, so I'm like, fuck this, I'm doing the fucking tag that's all about drugs or whatever it is, But yeah, I sometimes do that. There's only there's only so much you can do though. I've learned with taking stuff out to be more palatable to a crowd. Like your material's your material, so you can tweak, but it's
You're not going to self-censor.
yeah.
It's kind of where it comes down to.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm curious, I get different answers from different people on this question. And overwhelming majority is kind of what you say is let them deal with it.
Yeah.
Let them figure out if it is funny or not.
Yeah, and I found too that like that was a real lesson in comedy too. Is like you don't know what these people are gonna think is funny. Like you don't until you're up. Like there's been shows that I've been like, oh, they're gonna be real conservative. They're like older, and then they've loved the dirtiest shit that one of the other people on the, because I'm not really that dirty, but that somebody else on the and they eat it up, and then like drug jokes and shit like that. You truly never know.
How much of that do you think comes from the host or the comedian that went up before you that sets a level of levity between the crowd and the people coming up on stage?
That can be huge. Yeah, I think the host is like, I think the host does have a pretty big impact in that way. Of especially just even if they're cold and not laughing, of just keeping it light. And I remember when I was in New York, I went and saw a show at the Village Underground.
Yes.
And I remember the host killed. It was like I forget his name, but he's a really good comic. You would know his name, I think, if I said it. But he was just so energetic, and it was just a different gig from. It wasn't like, hey, what's up? Start material. It was like the gig was he was going to do material, but the whole gig was getting everyone. He was energy and getting everyone involved around him, and it was just that was the foundation for the show. I was like, that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because I do think it's important.
I do too, especially if you're sitting in the crowd at a comedy club. Like if the host doesn't engage the crowd or doesn't get them going, and I think the best hosts are the ones that have crowd work and are able to pivot on the fly, because they'll start, they see it's not going where they want to go, but their whole job is to make everybody kind of get into a happy mood so whoever's coming up has a fighting chance.
Yeah.
And I think the best comedians are like that. Like I've seen Cheyenne a few times now as a host.
Oh yeah, he's real good.
I know
he's
the routine
really good
he's
at
going to
that.
do, but I've also seen him tweak that routine every single time, depending on where he's at, what the comedian is, and it goes great based on that. So
Yeah.
again, Cheyenne, shout out to you again. I bring you up all the time. There's a reason for it. You're gonna be an absolute murderer in your own respect. I can't wait to see.
Cheyenne kicks ass. Yeah, I love Cheyenne.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. The bit he does about his wife, like to open it up, it's great because it kind of just like levels everything off and everybody's happy at the end. I don't know. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
Have you hosted at all? Comedy clubs? Have you had the chance to kind of like be that MC?
I did. I hosted, and I hosted at Hyenas mostly.
Fort Worth or Dallas?
Both.
Okay.
But they when I was first gonna start hosting, like they had a whole thing that Ryan Perio helped me a lot too. Ryan Perio and Seth Coles and Asher Allen also. So they had, like, aside from the structure that the club had, I probably have now, but they were very serious about the hosting duties, and they were like, here's where this goes, here's where this goes, here's how you wrap up the show, which is I think that's a good thing that more. There are some shows that like you gotta. It's very simple, how you the rhythm of like, give it up for hit, and then there's an applause and you get out and the music starts. And if that doesn't happen, it's so fucking awkward every time. But no, so I was really grateful that I had that structure, and then I had these guys to help me along for the hosting, because I don't think it was like very natural for me, and I don't think necessarily a lot of my material leads to the opening, because I have some more out there shit kind of, but I did enjoy it. Like I aside from the blowjob shots, but aside from that, no, it was cool. I was in good experience. Yeah. Glad to know how to do it kind of thing.
Right. And is it something that you think helps move your comedy career forward? Like, is it a good teaching method to be a host at a comedy club, or
I think it's good. I think it's good it's just stage time, and not only your time doing your material, but just being on stage and running like, what do you say between comics? What do you say when there's a blowjob shot? Like, getting comfortable with all that stuff helps. Just being on there and being in the center of the room and everything.
And how much of it, because I know, like, the host comes up multiple times introducing the other comedians and things like that. How much the guy was good or bad, guy, gal, doesn't matter, kind of makes you change up what you would have said or try to kind of like bring a crowd back? Because I've been in clubs before where somebody makes an incest joke, and most of the time Dallas crowds are just not going to respond well to it.
Yeah.
And you see a good host kind of just bring it back into, hey.
Yeah, there's almost like like you almost have to like bring it down to build it back up kind of thing, where you just let it breathe. Like, you come up, and I was always pretty standard with what I was never very creative with like what I would say after hey, that was so and so, let him hear it or whatever. And but yeah, I guess if it was like really bad, I would just not say anything about that, but kind of just like, how are y'all doing? Like, just take a beat, real fast, and let it sit there for a minute. And then that way, when the time is right, then start building it back up for the headliner or whatever.
Makes sense. Okay. So kind of just like calm them down and then ramp them up again in a different direction, get ready for who's next.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, that takes skill, and it takes it's a pivot in and of itself to figure out how to get them back up.
Yeah.
Especially after, sometimes it just turns for the worse. Like,
yeah.
And I've seen it where they're just like booing and heckling, and people are just going, and you're like, wait, there's 3 more people that need to go up after this person. What are we doing now?
Oh no.
I know. Like I said, a good host will be like, hey, we can fix this.
Yeah. And sense when they're getting tired. That's a big thing. It's like, if you're doing a longer show, like, people get tired after a while. So late show, people get tired.
Yeah, the 10 p.m. shows or the 10:30 shows that kind of go past midnight, you need to be up for that show. You shouldn't be stumbling into a club at that point, especially since whoever was the comedian knows that the late show is where more relaxed people are, more drunk people, kind of like inhibited more. So they can try darker stuff, crazier shit that usually may not have worked at the 7:30 show. So just be prepared that you're walking into what would be, like just this dirty pit of, we can do whatever the hell we want. To a certain degree, obviously.
Yeah.
I love those shows more than I like, the 7:30 shows.
Those are some really fun shows, yeah. Those can be, those are interesting, especially when, I don't do crowd work myself much.
I was going to ask you about that, because when you did your set, I didn't see you do much crowd work, and I was curious as to, is that part of, like, you avoid it, doesn't work for you, you just don't like it?
Yeah, I never really have done crowd work. It's something that, I don't know, my thing is, I always want, I'm always working on jokes, and I'm trying to so it's the thing that I never really considered that much, is because there's always like something I want to work on. So I want to get up there and like start my shit, because especially like if you're rewriting something and the new part is like 3 minutes in or whatever, and you're like, well, I have to do all this old shit to see if this new shit works.
So it's a writer's mind that's saying, we need to follow this path and see where it goes. If we pivot into a crowd, I'm never going to hear the response.
Yeah, I figure it's, kind of on me to entertain. It's like, I can do it. I don't know. It's just a thing because I love other people's crowd work. You know, it's some real funny, some real great shit. Todd Berry, for instance.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just never been my thing. I did a crowd work show once, and I I did very little crowd work and then did material, and I got in trouble. And I did it another time, and I actually did more crowd work, and it was okay. But those are the two isolated instances I think where I've like voluntarily done crowd work.
Okay. So just not for you, which is what I don't know if people are going to like this or not, but I feel like sometimes crowd work is a crutch.
It can be. Yeah, I think it can be for sure.
Now, there are other people. This is the third time I'm mentioning the same man, Harlan Williams. That crowd, because I got to
Harlan
see him
Williams
live,
is so funny and so nice.
and I got the chance to hang out with some comedians that night, and they're like, "Bro, like this is the third night. It's completely different and
Yeah,
was
that's
different.
it's very different. It's very different between doing that and
A stringent kind of like structured
having a
set.
question and like having an answer loaded up that you always say, like, that's
And his was not
That's
loaded
just
at all.
that.
He was just looking at the crowd and would come up with things on the fly, like, you look like a Catholic school teacher or something like that, or a group of nuns. And then I say it, probably even you saying it as a comedian doesn't hit the way when Harlan says it. There's a tonality to it. There's a flow to it. There's just the way he speaks it's
yeah, he's
beautiful
one
in a
of one.
sense.
Yeah.
And I love him because it's not a crutch at all, the crowd work. It is part of his routine. That is what makes it so funny, is because you don't understand when he flows in and out of making fun of somebody and attaches it straight into his bit. And you're like, how the hell did you do that?
Yeah, it's
on the fly. What are you
something
doing?
to behold. It
Yeah.
really is. Was that at the Improv when you saw him?
He was at the Addison Improv, yes, sir.
When was this? A little bit ago? I saw him, and I don't remember when.
I want to say 3 months ago, 4 months ago.
Okay,
probably.
I saw mine. I think mine was like a few years ago, but he was so
a
funny.
few months ago, I tried to get him to come to the podcast, but didn't have a chance to speak to him there, and then contacted on Instagram, but got nowhere. I'll keep trying. Hopefully next time.
Harlan.
I would love to sit down because I would love to understand the mind of a person like that.
Yeah.
There's certain people that you're just like, how does your brain work, dude? I don't get it. Like, I wish I could. I wish I had. Like Robin Williams was one of those people. Never understood how that brain worked, but always fascinated by it. I don't know. There's just certain people like that. You're like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
But those people, when I saw Harlan the first time in Half Baked, and then saw that wasn't that guy then. It's the Harlan Williams now that I really want to sit down and talk with, because he's got the 20s and the 30s and the 40s that he lived.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the stories there are going to be cool.
Yeah, I remember him being like insanely laugh out loud funny, like from front to back. Like he came up and was one of those guys that's like a force. Like he came up and it just didn't stop. Like he took the stage and he was crushed for however long and left, and it was like the same crazy vibes he came in on.
You just didn't want it to end, honestly. Like,
No.
I didn't want him to leave it. I was like, just keep making us laugh. Because stomach wrenching, like, oh my God, I'm about to die funny. And you're like, keep going. Please keep going.
Yeah. Oh man.
That's the rarity of.
I haven't thought of that show in a long time. Harlan Williams.
He's a cool
dude.
And that's the thing, is like, if you're sleeping on some comedians because they're not your generation, you're missing out on the. We all know Chappelle, but along that line, there's so many really good comedians, both male and female, that you should give some attention to.
Absolutely.
And part of this podcast, I love dropping those names, is hoping that some people will find others. This is why the Black and White Busts are here. So, like, hey, get to know, Busta Scruggs and all these other guys that were funny, and Charlie Chaplin. And I don't know. I feel like watching the history of
Fat Hitler here.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding. Laurel and Hardy. I know who Laurel and Hardy are. I didn't see their I was going to say I saw their steps when I went to LA. I intended to see their steps, and then I never went.
You're all right. Don't worry about it. Not much has changed, but, Laurel and Hardy, Monty Python crew.
Dude, I just watched Monty Python for the first time, like a year ago, probably. I watched Holy Grail, and I was blown away. It's so funny, and it's so like you see so many bits that have been done over and over that were, I'm assuming, done for the first time then, like the guy's getting all his limbs chopped off, and they do that bit in Austin Powers. It's the Will Ferrell character.
Yeah,
like he
yeah.
won't die. He just keeps getting his.
It's kind of why I say you should study the previous comedy greats, because you will see the origin of what you may find so funny now, because it's
Yeah.
just evolved into the Austin Powers version of what they did
Yes.
40 years ago, 50 years ago.
Well-
I don't remember how long ago it was, but it was a long time ago.
That was one of the coolest actions I've ever had on Twitter, because I'm a huge like Simpsons nerd. Mainly just the first 10 seasons. But
Okay. Why
big,
first 10?
Big, because they're the best ones.
Really?
We're actually really mostly 3 to 10, but I'll give 1 and 2 some shine. But I was talking. Bill Oakley, one of the writers, was talking on Twitter one time about a bit they did with. I think it had to do with the very tall man driving the tiny car, and he like gets out, and it's a very funny visual gag. But I mentioned that they had someone had like accused them of like, oh, that's this joke from this movie, and he was like, well, it was also in this, and I was like, it was also in Kung Fu Hustle, and he like responded to me. The Simpsons nerd in me was just like gleeful. I was
Nice.
like, talking comedy with the Oak Man.
That's cool. I don't know if you're familiar with Inside the Actors Studio with James Lipton.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen the one that he interviewed pretty much the entire cast of The Simpsons, the original cast?
I don't think I have seen it.
It's
I need
a
to check it out.
wonderful conversation, because almost all the voiceover actors are there, and I think one of the writers or one of the directors is there. Some and it's this really interesting conversation of getting to know what is the longest running show in American
Yeah,
history. I think
so.
Right?
Or longest
Animated series or something.
Non like reality show at least.
Okay.
Because I think, well, no, it's like non-soap maybe.
Yeah,
I
like
think the
Days of Our
soap
Lives is still
ones are the
going, right?
ones. Yeah, I think those are the ones that go forever.
But like as far as traditional media, not a soap opera media, it's the longest running one. And if you don't know what The Simpsons is, like go look at the sheer amount of crap that they've predicted, and then it happened.
Yeah.
And then you're like, how? Why?
I love that like the kids have found out about The Simpsons. We have all these great shitpost accounts with like just incredible Simpsons memes, because there's so many jokes in The Simpsons that like the jokes you can make out of the jokes are incredible. So like the steamed hams thing.
Steamed ham thing.
There was an episode 23 short films about Springfield, and it was
Okay.
done where they were like kind of all weaved in together kind of thing.
Kind of like their Halloween specials.
It was kind of, but with more, and they were, but with there weren't 23. There were actually like 11 or something.
That's even
But
better.
but one of them was a sitcom about Principal Skinner, and Principal Skinner, who's always terrified of Superintendent Chalmers. So
Yeah.
the whole sketch is that he's invited Chalmers over for steamed clams, and then he realizes he like burned the clams, and he's like, oh no, my luncheon's gonna be ruined, And then he realizes there's a Krusty Burger across the street, and he
Okay.
goes and he's like, he like serves Superintendent Chalmers the platter full of burgers, and he's like, I thought you said we were having steamed clams, and he goes, no, I said steamed hams. That's what I call hamburgers. And then he goes, he's like, I've never heard of hamburgers referred to. He's like, oh, it's a regional dialect. And he goes, what region? And he goes, upstate New York.
Nice.
He goes, I'm from Albany. I've never heard that expression. He goes, oh, no, it's more of a Utica term. Fucking
Which,
great.
for those of you that don't know, is like small towns in upstate New York. Not much happens.
It's a regional dialect. And then the kitchen gets set on fire, and he says that Aurora Borealis is happening in his kitchen. He's like, Aurora Borealis. It's like, it's super funny. You should check it out.
I will. I kind of lost touch with The Simpsons and Family Guy. I don't know. It kind of became repetitive to me at a point.
Oh,
where
yeah.
I not that the stories were repetitive, but like I'm looking at the same people, never change in any way.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was like, all right.
Oh, yeah,
And
I
I'll
know
give
it.
it a break and come back to it a
Yeah,
couple
you
years later.
You get sick of like the aesthetic of a show after
Yeah.
a while. Yeah.
So far, Rick and Morty hasn't done that for me. I'm still into
I
it.
think I've seen. I think I'm caught up on Rick and Morty.
I love that show.
I've enjoyed it.
They almost lost me when that big sperm got impregnated in the sky. Almost lost me.
Yeah, that
I was
was
just
ridiculous.
like, oh, you guys just went way, way too far. And I was
Incest
like, all right.
baby. The incest baby in space.
Yeah, and then I was like, all right, I understand why.
And they
this
named
needs
it
to exist.
Naruto.
Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah. I appreciated that they named it Naruto.
I liked all of this stuff that, where you can almost lose people, but you're willing to go that far for your artistic freedom.
Yeah.
I appreciate
And
that.
it's fair. Yeah. And also, like, man, it's like, if you think something's funny, it's like, if you think something's funny and someone else is, is gonna like be upset by it, then it's like gets a little more funny even.
It's funnier, isn't it?
Inside, it's like, oh, I cannot say that.
Well, I think that's the whole point of comedy is by bringing light to a situation or humor, bringing light to a situation. I repeated myself. Is the only way where we can deal with some of the darkest or
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
weirdest things that are going on in society and kind of, hey, it's stupid, but
Yeah.
it's also funny.
Yeah. That's I think a huge percentage of comedy is just people dealing out loud with their lives. It's just,
Right.
we're all, you know what I mean? We're all grappling with this shit.
We're all just trying
There's
to
all-
figure it out.
There's absurd shit happening all the time.
I completely agree with you on that.
You just gotta write it down and go to the old Hyenas and talk about it.
The Fort Worth one?
Either one.
Plano
Well,
closed
no,
down,
Fort
right?
Worth does. Fort Worth does have an open mic. It's on Thursdays. Yes, Plano did close down. Now there's only Plano House of Comedy in Plano.
Hopefully they'll open up another Hyenas. I don't know. I like the vibe of that.
I would
club.
like that
love
too.
that
I
vibe.
heard. I've always heard rumors. Yeah, I've heard rumors that they were going to open another one, but nothing concrete. But
You know what?
Yeah, I would be all for it.
Why don't we put this into the universe and see what happens? Hey, Joe, Mothership 2, Dallas?
Yeah.
Please?
Nah,
Nah.
we have good pizza.
We got
called
good people, too.
Carmine's. Yeah.
Yeah. We got
I mean,
good
I'm not
people.
going to put myself on the same level as Carmine's Pizza, but we got some guys.
We got some stuff going on.
Yeah.
But, Mothership 2, why not? Could be fun. So I've been seeing a trend lately, and I love it, where comedians that are working, are talented, but don't have an Amazon or a Netflix that's trying to offer them a special, so they post theirs on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I love it too.
Is that something that you want to do or are planning on
Yes.
doing?
Yes, absolutely. I don't know how, but because mostly but I've been thinking about in terms of the material I have, and I would really like to do that.
In regards to that, you feel confident that you've got, 11 years into it, I'm sure you've got an hour just tight, set up the way you like it.
Yeah. I think I have plenty of material, and I think I could figure out how to. I don't know. I've done like one time. I think I did an hour. I've done 45 minutes before. It hasn't been that many times that I've done. I've been featuring, so most of mine stuff is 30 ish, but
So how
it's
about
mostly
putting out a 30?
well, I would be open to that. Here's the thing. I would be open to putting out that or trying to make it an hour, but I like it's filming and audio. It's all the technical sides of it. I don't know anything about. So I would like to figure out more
So
how to do it, where I would want to do it.
Corey Park, shout out to Corey Park. He is an audio engineer, really good guy. He helped me with setting all this stuff up, doing my acoustics, but he also does kind of like live recording things too. So if you ever need, I'm happy to kind of make the connection for you.
Yeah, I might.
If you need cameras, you're welcome to utilize mine anytime you need it.
Hell yeah.
They're just shit. Who cares?
Yeah. I mean, if they're
so-
better than my old iPhone, then they're
If you need, I'm happy to kind of like coordinate.
No, I
the people
appreciate it.
for you, because I feel like after 11 years, it's high time that the world starts to know who you are. because you
I
are
agree.
genuinely a really funny comedian.
Thanks, man. I appreciate
I
that.
really want that to blow up on YouTube. So,
Hell yeah. Yeah.
you get that hour spot at the mothership or something coming up.
Yeah.
That would be a lot of fun.
No, that's
And then don't forget about me.
I won't, of course. No. I
mention me once in a while.
It sounds great. Like it really is. I really need to have more initiative there. But because I do think I could do it. It's just like you got to get it in your head you're doing it, you know?
Buddy, you're not the only one. I think a bunch of people are thinking that you're there.
Yeah, I hope so. I think I have enough material. I'll say this, that I would feel good about, like I would feel good with putting out
An hour or a half
on
hour
YouTube.
at least.
Yeah.
Because you remember Comedy Central's half-hour comedy night?
Oh yeah,
those were
absolutely.
so good.
They were.
They were funny, and we got introduced with so many people.
That was like the big thing. I think it was still around when I started, but it hasn't
but Comedy
been.
Central, they. Let's just leave it at that. Rest in peace, Comedy Central.
Yeah.
Whatever morphed version you are now.
We love your Office reruns.
Yeah. You're like MTV. You used to be music, and we enjoyed it in the 90s and the early 2000s, and then it was just nothing but reality TV.
Yeah. And now they're like, I mean, I guess
What do they do now?
they do a roast from time to time.
Speaking of
That's
roasts,
the most,
yeah,
I think, comedy thing they do.
on Comedy Central,
And even
right?
then, it's like 3 comedians now.
Yeah,
3 comedians and a bunch of, well, there are more comedians, but they're not seen. They're writing jokes for,
the other comedians.
for the celebrity, for the whoever is like friends with the celebrity that's getting roasted.
Ah, okay, I get it. Do you do roast battles at all? Because I see them around town all the time popping up.
Nah, I've never done a roast battle. I almost roast battled a friend of mine once. R.I.P. He's dead now. Love you, Clint. But
Please, Clint.
We were gonna roast battle one time, and I was like, it fell through. But I remember thinking like, it was when I was drinking a lot. I know I wouldn't have been prepared, and the dude like Clint was hilarious as shit. And I think I'm kind of glad it didn't happen. But I've done a couple roasts, actual roasts, and I did. I like find like an angle and just write ridiculous shit. I haven't really ever. I think I told a couple mean jokes on one that were kind of mean toward other local comics, but just not really. I wasn't like going for the jugular on anyone, That's not really my style.
Fair enough. I mean, roasting in a comedic sense, or it only happens in a comedic sense, is very highly specific.
Yeah.
You're either a killer at it or no.
Yeah, it's like improv. It's
Yeah.
like if you see people know what they're doing, it's like amazing. And if you see like people who don't know what they're doing, it's just hard to watch. They're probably just going to say really mean things inartfully,
And
which is,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
that's kind of funny, I guess, on a, not like you won't laugh out loud when you see it, but you'll think later, you'll be like, oh, that was kind of funny.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to see really good improv, just to kind of go back on a catalog, you can always go and watch Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Oh, yeah. Dude, those guys were incredible.
Especially the older stuff. when
Yes.
Drew was around. And
Drew,
oh my
Colin
God,
Mockery,
yes.
Ryan Stiles, and Wayne Brady. That was the dream
Wayne
team.
Brady he doesn't get the credit he deserves. He is one of the funniest people ever.
Yeah.
That guy is hilarious.
He wasn't he like the super, like, I mean, they were all really good, but wasn't Wayne Brady like the kind of the superstar of that show? And he kind of like the breakout, because Drew Carey was already very famous.
Yeah, Drew had his Drew Carey show and everything, and Drew kind of felt like he was the host more than anything else. There was a lot of funny that he put into it, but
And he was like almost like a moderator.
yes,
He would be like between the audience and them.
Wayne Brady, I mean, I don't know if that show would have gone on and continue to go on without that man.
Yeah.
I'll just be honest.
No,
with
probably
you.
not.
He was not better than everyone else. He was just, like you said, the superstar of that show. There always is one person that stands out in a crowd.
Yeah.
And yeah, Wayne Brady was that guy, dude. Like,
I've heard Drew Carey is cool as shit too.
I never met the man. I haven't really seen too many interviews with him, but I would say that if you're going to host a show like The Price is Right, you have to be sociable and likable, because all these random people, if they guess a number right, are going to be next to you for 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
For
And you have to
every day.
Yep.
So you have to be the type of person that has a really good personality. Otherwise, sooner or later, it's going to come out that you're a dick.
Yeah. Yeah.
He just doesn't look like one of those guys, though.
No,
he just seems like a sweetheart.
I've heard he's like really, really cool, really nice to work with. And then I watched a Hot Ones with the rapper. Is it Machine Gun Kelly? One of the white rappers, but they're from Cleveland.
There's like
they're
3.
from Cleveland. Whichever one I'm thinking of is from Cleveland because he knows Drew Carey for this reason. But he said that Drew Carey would always come to his shows when he was in Cleveland, and he would always have like 4 or 5 just beautiful women with him.
Nice.
It's like, hell yeah, go Drew Carey.
It's kind of like David Spade.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks about it, or people don't know nowadays. But if you were a kid growing up when we grew up, David Spade was like the biggest playboy.
Heartthrob.
Yeah, he was doing more numbers than DiCaprio was doing. Seriously, like model after model after model.
Yeah.
What the hell was it? Never understood it.
They loved his Hollywood Minute.
He's good.
He's
was funny. His show was pretty good.
I liked his appearance on. I've been watching the Larry Sanders Show.
Yeah.
On HBO. He was on like the first one of those, and I remember he told the story on Norm Macdonald's podcast about, and he was like they wanted Sandler, and Norm was like, so did we. It was a really great. He's like telling his story, and it's one of those that was so subtle it took him a second. He was like, "Hey, fuck you."
Yeah, seriously. Speaking of Adam Sandler, have you heard people speak about that man? I've never heard anybody say a bad word about Adam Sandler ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, you gotta love Adam Sandler.
Yeah, like
He's so great.
He's a massive superstar, and
Still wears basketball shorts everywhere.
like couldn't care less.
Yeah.
By the way, Academy, fuck you guys for not giving him the Oscar for Uncut Gems. Seriously, fuck you guys.
Yeah, I agree.
What the hell? Nothing was better that year.
I remember being really upset about that when it happened. I was like, this is fucking bullshit.
Didn't
he release Hubie Halloween as a response to that? Isn't he
I think so. Yeah,
he was like, I'm going to make
that.
the stupidest movie of all
He literally,
time.
I think, yeah, you're right. He did say that. He was like, you know what? If I do this, which was a work of genius, not just Adam Sandler, but the entire cast of film, the way it was done.
It was so good.
Great.
So
you were
good.
on the edge
So
of your
stressful.
seat. Oh, my God. And the main reason I thought he deserved that Oscar was because I love seeing actors whose entire life has been a specific genre of film, and then they do something completely out of left field. Kind of like De Niro, Meet the Fockers.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Yeah.
You didn't expect De Niro to be so funny as an actor, but that range is what I love. And seeing Adam Sandler be, Happy Gilmore, make me laugh, Waterboy, to do this, you're like, this is art. You should appreciate it.
Yeah.
But the Academy that's supposed to
But
appreciate
no,
it.
they can't appreciate
They
that
have their head up
because
their
they
ass.
can't appreciate. They can't appreciate Uncut Gems because they can't appreciate Billy Madison. That's my theory.
Which is
if you can't appreciate Billy Madison, you shouldn't be talking about movies. It was a great movie.
Waterboy.
Waterboy,
the way
hilarious.
The role he does. Look, if you switched it for, I don't know, Dustin Hoffman or somebody, and you had a mentally handicapped person story, it would have won an Oscar. But because he made it funny, you guys don't give him his, just deserved.
I would have loved to see Dustin Hoffman as Rain Man in Waterboy, though. How
Hell
funny would
yeah.
that have been?
Just counting the droplets of water.
Definitely.
4 million four million water bottles. You're just sitting there going like, holy crap. No, that's the thing is like I don't understand it. Why artistic creativity is hindered by people that none of us know or care about, to be honest.
Yeah.
That don't listen to the public.
Yeah, it's the.
It's the same thing.
In
with Rotten
retrospect,
Tomato.
I should have known. We all should have known. They're too snooty to ever fucking let the Sandman have his win.
We should have
frankly.
learned after they fucked over Kevin Hart.
What was he gonna get?
He was going to host.
I don't
Hart was
remember that.
scheduled to host the Oscars, and then they made him publicly or they were telling him to publicly re-apologize, not apologize, but re-apologize for making some gay jokes on a special 10 years ago about his kid.
Oh shit!
And then
Damn, I don't remember that at all. That's brutal.
Kevin Hart came out and was like, but I already apologized for this once. I refuse to do it again. Fuck you, the Academy. This was my biggest dream my entire life, and you ruined it. And then they, at some point, were trying to get other comedians and stuff to kind of host, and I don't remember who hosted, but nobody wanted. They were like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to touch it. Like
Didn't
Billy, they even went to Crystal, and Billy Crystal was like, no. Kevin should be there. He deserves that. Everybody thought he deserved it.
Billy Crystal, it's hard to get him to say no to the Oscars too.
That guy hosted more than everybody else.
It's in his blood.
By the way, if you haven't seen Billy Crystal's one-man show, 500 Days of Summer, you're missing out on an amazing story. And it's got a lot of funny in it. It's kind of like Neil Brennan's Boxes. Have you seen that
Oh, yeah,
special?
I love it. Yeah.
Where it's not just a comedy special. It is a telling of a beautiful story that has a lot of funny in it. That's how
Awesome,
Billy
yeah.
Crystal's 500 Days of Summer was.
Shit, I'll check it out.
It's like a stage performance. It's kind
Is it
of like
HBO?
that. Oh, this was so long ago that I want to say it is HBO because Billy's kind of always been on the HBO contract train, and they've been good to him, I'm guessing.
They let him do his baseball movie, which was really good.
Yes.
61.
I don't know. That's the other thing is, like, I hate these ivory towers, and I love the fact the internet is here and podcasting and dropping on YouTube when Netflix won't give you what you want.
Yeah.
There's this way of telling the institution what the people want and seeing that response.
Yeah.
Because when you've got 10 million plus views on YouTube, hey, Netflix, I just outdid whatever you were going to do anyways.
Yeah.
What do I care?
Yeah. That's the beautiful
And
thing
that should
about
be the
Sam
wake-up
Morrill's.
call.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, like, when Shane Gillis got SNL and then got fired before he even had a chance to be on SNL, pissed me off because of his comedy.
Oh, his special was funny as hell.
He's so good.
Yeah.
When he does Trump getting assassinated and the sound, I was just crying.
Oh man, that was a powerhouse special. That was really good.
Have you seen his bit about racism in football?
Yes.
Dude,
yes.
So good.
Oh,
It's so good.
yes.
I can't help it when he's like, "Those are my brothers." I can't help but just cry laughing.
He's that was a great special.
Shane's good. Sam Morrill's amazing. If you haven't seen him, Mark Norman's really good. Just
Yeah.
like not up and comers, but like the big guys right now. Everybody knows Kreischer and Segura because those are on a different stratosphere.
Yeah.
But the guys that are like top of the game performing right now, like Shane's in that list for sure. Sam's in that list. I mean, I don't know. Who else do you think? Who do you like? Like that's kind of like the young comedy scene now that's blown up and is really good. Who should we put on the mark?
Let me think. Shit, I don't know. Nothing comes to mind off the top of my head.
Fuck it, we'll cut it out. Don't worry about it. Just move on.
I don't know who.
Another question. Sam Morrill's funny, right?
Oh no.
I'm just kidding. Speaking of
I saw
the Dodgers
him.
now.
That was the last time I was at the Addison Improv, actually.
You saw Sam?
Yeah,
How long ago was that?
A couple years,
Oh, okay.
or maybe a year.
So
He was working on the hour that he put out on the on his Netflix special,
okay.
I believe.
So he was just working material.
Yeah, and it was not long after he had put out the one on YouTube, and then he did the rooftop special.
Yeah.
It
Was
was
that
like
the COVID
after
one?
both those, and he was already well into writing this new hour that I think eventually became the Netflix special, but
Which
super funny.
Which was crazy when I got to see Ari Shafir here. It was like 2 weeks after he had dropped Jew on YouTube, and I got to see that too. And he did an entirely different hour.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Not a single word of the Jew special came up. Like he didn't even talk about religion at all. It was like 20 minutes about his dog and their love fest, which was fucking hilarious.
Oh yeah.
It's just like how he likes to make other white people cringe the way he loves his dog. I was like, this is the greatest thing in the world. But no, that was so cool for me. I was like, it was the first time I got to see finished product and then an entire new thing. And that he's been working on that way before he got up on the Addison Improv stage.
Yeah.
Because it was tight. It was already good. How much of what you have kind of like gets separated into this will be a whole separate thing in the future, kind of like 30 minutes, where it may have been part of your 30 now, but you're like, it doesn't really work here, but it's really good on its own. Does that happen to you where you start working on material for a future date even before you know it.
Yeah, there's stuff that I know am is not ready that I'll write down and think that I'll have a place for it eventually.
It'll become prime time at some point.
But it's like yeah, you try to keep reminding yourself, write it down, make notes so you don't forget it. But yeah, I definitely have had that thought.
So we touched upon it, but I'm curious as to how much of it comes into your comedy, your family. Growing up with two older brothers, mom and dad, the whole thing.
Not really that much.
No?
I tell a story. I tell a story involving me and my brother. It's about us just being really competitive. Or that's how I frame it anyway. It was just a weird thing that happened when we were kids, and we each bought fighting fish, and we didn't realize that one was going to kill the other, and then mine kept killing my brother's, and it was like this wonderful thing for me. I kept being like, oh, this is great, you know? I made a joke about it. But really, yeah, I really veer kind of not personal for the most part. And I don't think I've thought about it really, but I mostly keep the personal and like the vague shit and like setups, you know. That's most of where the truth is.
So healthy relationship with your bros?
Yeah, very healthy.
Still
yeah,
good
we
now,
all get
like...
along. Yeah. We were spaced out well. We were all 3 years apart, so
yeah,
we all kind of had our own things and stuff. But yeah, real good relationship.
Are your brothers in the creative fields at all?
Actually, one of my brothers works on. He's on. I forget his job title. He works on the L.A. Lakers show on HBO, Winning Time.
Okay.
Or has. I don't know if they've been renewed for another season. And then my brother is actually, he works as like a caterer, and he cooks and bakes and barbecues.
So all creative stuff.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, yeah.
Food is a very, very creative, artistic form. A lot of people don't get it.
It's really cool. Yeah.
This is why mac and cheese sucks until somebody who is an artist comes in and is like, you know what?
Yeah.
Here, try this one. So let's ask another question, because now I've got three creatives in a family. Mom and dad?
They were a teacher and a seller of architectural materials. So, like wood and siding and like who the contractors go to get building materials from.
Okay, so he was like the wholesale side of the materials that needed to build anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And mom was a school teacher.
Mom was a teacher, yep.
What grade level?
She bounced around a little. She started in second, and then eventually she became like a reading specialist, so like and then a principal. No, it was more like you kind of decide like you kind of decide like the direction of the curriculum for the English of like the school kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So she picked out the books for this year and what the study material. Cool. That's very nice.
Yeah.
And then
so it was very encouraged, like reading, and so in retrospect, I'm really glad that I had parents who really encouraged that and really encouraged like not just reading for school, but just being interested in stuff. You know.
Got it. Making your mind not just ingest information, but actually think about it and formulate your own thoughts from it.
Yeah. Follow your interests, like just, yeah.
It's a good
Stay
parent.
Curious. Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the,
It's not an overwhelming theme, honestly. It is not an overwhelming theme when it comes down to...
I can imagine.
The folks that I've spoken with, very few of them say that the family life was great. A lot of them do say now... post when they are adults and have found comedy as almost a way of therapy to deal with shit.
Yeah.
They get better relationships with family members.
Yeah.
And are more accepting of.
No, yeah, I definitely fall into the, I've heard Seinfeld talk about it, and he was like, I almost felt guilty coming up that I was like, I just normal parent. Like, it was pretty much, I was like.
Which, I don't know. I feel like if it's not the parents, it's got to be something that triggers being funny. I almost feel like no one's born that way.
It's Yeah, I mean, I think it's the youngest thing, and because like it really does. Like when I remember being a kid, and it, like if I could make my oldest brother, my middle brother's friends, and him laugh, like that was like I felt like on top of the world, being younger than them. So I think that's a lot of what it is, and a lot of my also my dad was a funny guy, and he liked stand up, and he showed us some stand up, and he was really into like classic SNL and stuff like that. So
Before
it was around. Yes. This is like I think he liked Belushi a lot.
Yeah, Belushi went too fast, man.
He did. He was really funny though.
I don't think we ever got like the true genius of what he would have been.
Yeah, he was so young. Wasn't Farley insanely young too?
Farley, I could be
a little
wrong
older
about this, but I think Farley died the same age as Belushi did in a very similar manner. They both
Speedballs.
overdosed. Yeah,
Speedballs. Yeah, good God.
Farley
So sad.
was burning the candle at both ends, definitely, man. I mean,
yeah,
it's still one of the funniest SNL bits ever. Farley as
Matt Foley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on,
So good.
That kind of stuff is really hilarious.
That was David Spade too. Look who we got here. It's
Yep.
old Bill Shakespeare.
And that's the old. You got to go check out like '90s SNL. Was Belushi '80s SNL?
Belushi was like 70s and early 80s.
Yeah. So you got to go check out SNL when it was funny, because like the greats were there. And on that note, I think we have had an interesting conversation. I don't feel like we touched upon a lot of things, and I want to save that for another podcast.
I'd be happy to come back, man. I had a great time.
I think I've been contemplating this thought in my head of doing a 1-year anniversary with the first set of people that came on the podcast, depending on
Cool.
Like mainly I want to try to focus it around the Dallas people and
Cool,
see
man.
what has changed in a year. Kind of like, hey, let's revisit a year from now what's been going on with you.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
I want to do that until somebody goes like, hey, by the way, I sold out Dallas Cowboys Arena and start next week, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
yes.
George Teague.
Like
did
somebody
it.
made it, dude. Like
Hell yeah. Wow.
it's kind of like, so I would love to have you back on maybe before the 1-year anniversary. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, man.
Life is fun. Check out Oddball History, right?
That's right. Oddball History. I know. I figured that out like way deep into the podcast.
So
I wasn't looking at that
that's
ever.
me, and then this is like both of us.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
No, I think I was mostly playing to this guy, and then I realized that one was pointed right at me.
Which is great. If you play to that, that's going to show up. No problem. But yeah, Oddball History. It's on YouTube.
It is
and
on YouTube,
Spotify,
and Apple.
So get where you get all your podcasts.
Listen to some weird history shit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it. It's weird and gross a lot of times.
How many episodes are you in?
I'm not even sure, like 20.
But there you go. So you've got at least 20 episodes of backlog to go into and to check out some funny stuff. Lawrence is also really funny.
Yeah, we got a
guest on the podcast.
Got a good crew over there.
Yeah, it seems like it's fun. And where can they find you on socials?
I am at Scott Crispson on Twitter. Just no underscores or letters, just Scott Crispson. Like if I was like from a Nordic country.
So CRISPON.
SON.
SON.
Crispson. Yes, because Scott Crisp was already taken for some reason.
Who owns that?
I don't know. There are
Hey, man,
a couple
give it up,
other.
bro. You're not gonna be as famous.
You piece
Leave
of
it
shit.
alone.
I've had it up to here with
What
you,
are you,
Australian Scott Crisp. I assume
He's
it's the Australian.
Is he?
I don't know. That's the only other Scott Crisp I know from social media, so I'm assuming it's him.
So if you're an Australian CPA named Scott Crisp on Twitter with your 4 followers, just put a 1 at the end of it. Give this man what he deserves.
That's
His
right.
name back.
Yeah, I have to be the one.
Yeah.
We've all seen the Jet Li.
There is
movie.
only one Scott Crisp.
Yeah,
Sorry, social.
Scott's
Sorry,
Instagram Scott's Crisps 38. Just Scott's Crisps 38, and I think that's all I'm on. I don't think I'm on any other. You can check me out on YouTube. I don't have much on there yet, but I should have a stand-up video coming soon from a show I did last like winter. I
Nice.
guess. Yeah.
So Check out Scott on Twitter and Instagram mainly. He's going to be doing some more on YouTube, and then Oddball History on Spotify and pretty much all other platforms.
YouTube, yeah, wherever.
Do you distribute everywhere?
I know of Spotify, YouTube, and Apple.
Okay. So what I use Spotify's podcaster platform. So I distribute everything through them. It's completely free, available to anyone that does a podcast. But the great thing is, if you put in all of the accounts, there's like actual links for all your other websites for podcasts, like iHeart, Dozer, all of that. Once you upload there, it'll put it everywhere for you.
Oh, very cool.
And it takes all the metadata, so like whatever the description will be is on there.
Yeah, I'll talk with Jimmy. Jimmy does all the technical stuff on it, which is very appreciative.
Very nice.
Appreciated. Yeah. Shout out Jimmy. But yeah, Spotify.
Yeah, that's what I use. It's so Spotify for podcasters. It's an amazing platform. It's free. It's easy to use, and they'll put it everywhere for you anyways.
Yeah.
And I kind of like their metrics and their tools. Apparently, somebody in Ghana listened to my podcast. Thank you to the one person in Ghana and the one person in Saudi Arabia. Thank you, both of you. The rest is just the United States.
Hell yeah.
But I was like, it's so funny when you open it and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Ghana.
Who?
What happened? Like,
what?
How did I reach you?
Yeah.
So really appreciative of that, like the metrics and kind of getting to like follow the flow of what you're doing. So Oddball History, we're going to edit this and make it sound more coherent. Please,
Yeah.
I'm ranting. Oddball History, see you on Twitter and on Instagram, and they can catch you all over the place in Dallas for, you do Hyenas, you do DCC, Addison sometimes.
Yeah, I post all my stuff on my Instagram. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'll have all the upcoming shows. Yeah.
I'll post some stuff on Instagram for Scott when this episode comes out so you guys can see it. But Scott, thank you again. I really appreciate it. I've been wanting to get you in the studio for a while.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Tom.
This was an awesome conversation.
I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you again.